Its cannon can fire laser-guided anti-tank missiles. Its armor is impenetrable to anything but nuclear weapons. It can kill 10 American M1 Abrams standing front to back in a row with just one shot. If the Russian Ministry of Defense and the Russian military bloggers are to be believed, the T-14 is the deadliest tank ever created, past, present, and future. But if it's so good, why isn't it in Ukraine, where it's needed the most? The T-14 really is quite impressive, at least on paper. Then again, up until 8 months ago, the Russian military was also quite impressive on paper. If the T-14 was a paper tiger, though, it was one with some serious capital investment. We know after 8 months of war that the Russian government never lies. And we do know that the T-14 Armata has been announced in full production at least half a dozen times in the last 10 years. Originally, the Russian military was supposed to acquire 2,300 of these monsters between 2015 and 2020, making Western analysts absolutely brown their pants at the time, back when the West actually believed a single word coming out of the Kremlin. However, when 2015 rolled around, not a single T-14 had been delivered, and the tank was still in prototype testing. In 2016, some Western news outlets reported that the T-14 was in fact on its way to crush democracy. The National Interest ran a story on March 13, 2016 saying, "Surprise! Russia's lethal T-14 Armata tank is in production." The source for the article was a quote from a top Russian defense industry executive, or basically a "trust me, bro." Yet, 2016 came and passed without a single T-14 in active service, and by July 20, 2018, Russia made the announcement that in effect indefinitely postponed any deliveries of T-14s, similar to the announcement made on the Su-57 Felon around that same time period. In 2021, Russian state-owned TASS media outlet reported that the tank would finally begin serial production in 2022, with serial production starting in December 2021. Mysteriously, not a single T-14 has been verified to be in active military service, though TASS did announce that the tank had been sent to Syria for testing in battlefield conditions. No other media in the world could verify this, and rumors circulating online that one T-14 was destroyed by Syrian rebels using an American TOW missile are also unverified. But let's wind the clock back and look at the background of the T-14, its alleged capabilities, and why Russia seems to be incapable of bringing these capabilities to a battlefield near you anytime soon. The T-14 was a seismic shift in Russian tank design. Back in 2010, Russia was developing the T-95, an upgrade over traditional Soviet-style tank designs. However, it was concluded that what Russia needed to be a relevant tank force in future conflicts was not an upgrade, but a complete evolutionary leap forward, leaving old Soviet tank design behind. The United States faced a similar problem back in the 1980s when it introduced the M1 Abrams. Originally, the US was simply going to continue evolving its M60 main battle tank, but the threat of overwhelming numbers of armed forces in Eastern Europe meant that it was time to throw the entire design out and work on something brand new. Like the M1 Abrams, it was built to face a specific threat, a defensive land battle against overwhelming numbers. The T-14 was born from discarded Soviet upgrades with the goal of building the tank around brand new technologies. It would be Russia's boldest leap forward in tank design for generations. While today it's easy to consider the Russian military laughable, the truth is Soviet designers knew what they were doing in making tanks. The Soviet Union fielded some truly fearsome tanks, many times superior to their Western counterparts. While the West held the advantage in the air and at sea, the Soviet Union was decisively the superior land power. Perhaps not in doctrine, but certainly in its armored forces. This expertise has continued to be handed down to modern Russia, and if at least half of its capabilities were real and not propaganda, it was a weapon to be feared. The T-14 would ditch traditional Soviet-style hulls to feature a more Western-style boxy turret and a low-profile body. This makes the T-14 a smaller target on the battlefield and can seriously improve crew safety by keeping them out of the line of fire. However, this redesign fixes one major flaw in nearly all tanks Russia has in service today, a flaw seen in full effect in Ukraine that has spawned an endless host of memes. Russian tanks store ammunition in the armored turret, which makes it easier for the autoloader to do its job. However, this also leaves the tank extremely vulnerable to top attack munitions, as any hit on the turret is guaranteed to light off this ammunition. In effect, Russian tanks have a tendency to blow their tops sky high and send the vaporized ashes of their crews into the stratosphere. Western designers, meanwhile, decided their tanks should be tanks and not rockets, and put the ammunition in the specially designed storage spaces with the blowout panels. The T-14 takes a cue from the West in this regard, much to the relief of Russian tankers, with no hopes of becoming astronauts one day. But the T-14 introduces a brand new feature that even the United States has yet to adopt. The turret can typically be a serious liability for the crew, and for it to do its job, it can't be as well armored as the rest of the body. That's bad news for the tank commander, whose seat is typically in the turret. However, the T-14 features an unmanned turret, which allows the crew to remote control it from the safety of their seats inside the body of the tank. In fact, the entire crew compartment is a densely protected armored capsule that the crew sits in, affording greatly increased survivability. The tank also features an upgraded barrel with increased range and lethality, as well as a host of modern upgrades including GPS, satellite communications, and even a meteorological mast to feed the environmental data to the fire control computer to greatly increase accuracy. So if the T-14 is so competent, why in the world isn't it in full production and storming the front lines in Ukraine today? Russia's attitude toward the T-14 appears to be a conundrum. The nation has gone to great lengths to tout its lethality and capabilities over even the most advanced Western designs, and is putting great effort into pressuring nations like India to buy it. Yet the Russian government seems completely uninterested in actually buying the tank itself. At the Army 2022 Expo, Rosoboronexport, the state-owned arms company that manufactures the Armata line of combat vehicles, was seen trying to garner international interest for the T-14s, while a TASS news article continued to speak out about its capabilities. Yet, instead of buying the revolutionary tank itself, Russia was trying to pawn it off on foreign buyers, a move that no doubt raised serious eyebrows from anyone considering buying the tank. The T-14 might arouse comparison to the Su-57, widely considered to be a dud and the worst of all fifth-generation fighter designs. The Su-57 was claimed to be superior to even US F-22s, the stealthiest fifth-generation fighter in the world, but this was demonstrably a lie. India, which was initially a partner in developing the Su-57, eventually pulled its funding from the program, citing serious questions about its effectiveness, stealth characteristics, and the ability to survive against other fifth-generation aircraft such as American F-22s and F-35s and Chinese J-20s. The pullout of Indian funding effectively killed Russia's ability to manufacture the Su-57, and to this day, only a little over a dozen of the aircraft are operational. However, while the Su-57 is on simple observation inferior in design to its counterparts, the T-14 appears to be the real deal and is backed by generations of Russian tank design know-how. The real reason why the Russian military might be passing on the tank is unlikely to be that it's a dud, but rather because Russia is facing the same problem the US was in the mid-2000s. With the turn of the millennium came a slew of revolutionary new military technologies and some serious spending around the world on developing and integrating them into active fighting forces. Nobody spent more than the US, which famously put nearly $20 billion into its Future Combat Systems program. However, all this tech came at serious cost to develop and purchase, and in the end, America's spending frenzy resulted in exactly 0 active surface weapon platforms. Instead, the US scaled back its ambitions and started spending on slow, incremental, and proven upgrades rather than moonshots. Russia seems to be facing the same issue, only on a budget the fraction the size of America's. And that means that Russia's dreams of a horde of 2,300 of this cutting-edge tank are simply financially impossible. Identifying these budgetary shortfalls as far back as 2016, Russia instead has been funneling money into modern upgrades for its existing tank fleet, rather than new acquisitions, and this left the T-14 without domestic support. So with a price tag of nearly $4 million each, the T-14 is a significant investment for any country, though it is still significantly behind America's Abrams, which comes in at nearly $10 million in the most modern variant. With a much smaller budget than the US, any hopes of acquiring the T-14 in large numbers were extremely unlikely in the past. Today, it is simply impossible. Sanctions against Russia for its invasion of Ukraine are having a significant economic impact, which has to date been delayed due to a massive war chest of over $300 billion that Putin had been holding in reserve for exactly this scenario. That money, originally as much as $700 billion, most of which was frozen in Western banks, is going to be running out soon though, and that's when Putin will be unable to offset the damage of the sanctions. So in other words, there's some very lean times ahead for the Russian military budget, especially as millions of professionals have left the country, further eroding its economy. The biggest death knell for Russia's acquisition of the T-14, however, and perhaps its ability to even manufacture it for foreign buyers should it find any, are sanctions targeting the nation's technology sector. The West and its partners around the world have in effect cut Russia off from the global technology market, making access to advanced electronic components the T-14 and other modern weapons need much more difficult and expensive. Russia is quite adept at sanction busting, but it's going to be impossible for the nation to illicitly get its hands on enough materials to build and maintain a fleet of over 2,000 high-tech tanks. Yet, we know Russia does have a small number of T-14s that it's been using for testing and prototyping. So why isn't it sending these to the front? The answer comes down to one simple comparison. A T-14 Armata tank costs approximately $4 million. A U.S. Javelin anti-tank missile costs around $250,000. The U.S. has supplied Ukraine with hundreds of this weapon system, and losing a single T-14 to a Javelin or British in-law is in effect an economic disaster in the making. Then, there is the huge loss in international prestige should Russia lose its most modern tank to a military that's supposed to be vastly inferior to itself. The same reason why we've yet to see the Su-57 in combat over Ukraine. It's not known how many T-14s Russia has actually built, but the number is believed to be less than 100. Even if Russia wanted to send them to the front lines, there's simply not enough of them to form operational units out of. Instead, these ultra-modern T-14s would find themselves fighting alongside much more dated models, making them vulnerable on the battlefield. With too few T-14s to be used effectively, Russia is best served by using its old tank stockpiles rather than sending their new tanks to certain destruction or simply abandonment in Ukraine. After all, the shame of having a Ukrainian farmer tow away Russia's most advanced tank with a tractor might be what finally does the Russian military in. Now go check out why Putin is scared to deploy the Su-57 in Ukraine, or click this other video instead.